Alright guys, Alex here today, and I want to do a response video. This is going to be a video in response to another YouTube video that was posted about 2 months ago. It's a little over 2 months ago. From a YouTuber named Nerdslayer, and the title of his video, linked below down in the description, is EVE Online, the best MMO you won't play. What is that supposed to mean? So this intrigued me. I clicked on the video, I take a look at it, and I wasn't exactly sure what to make of it. Because the point he's making is that no one is going to play this MMO that we call EVE Online because the combat is boring. What? How does that deal with the title of the video? And so I was a little bit confused here, so I went back and watched it again, and really the title should be EVE Online, why you shouldn't play it. Basically, he lays out all the reasons why EVE Online is intriguing and why it captivates so many people, why it shows up in the news and people want to try it out, and ultimately where he feels that it falls flat as a dud and people leave the game. And I have a different take on this. So I understand that's what his perception is, it's what his view is, and I'm not necessarily saying that it's wrong. I think maybe some other people share that view, but I think for those of us who has played EVE Online for quite a long time, who have got into the game, and we take a look at what he says here, and again, in a nutshell, it's saying that the combat is just point and click. You just got two ships here, you hit the F1 button and you wait and you kind of orbit each other and you stare at each other until somebody wins. And that's the combat. The thing is that even by his own admission, his experience in EVE Online has been, frankly, running missions in high sec, and that was a decade ago. He says this in his own video. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. From my perspective, if you're running missions in high sec and that's the only thing you do, everyone would become bored. Everyone would leave the game, and yet they don't. And in fact, a lot of people play missions and that's what they do, and they're perfectly happy about it. So from my point of view, if you're in EVE Online and you're running high sec missions, and that's the whole frame of reference you're going to base EVE Online on, then you're basing EVE Online on a minute fraction of what the game has to offer. In fact, that's even what intrigues people. Playing missions in high sec is essentially like never leaving the starting zone in another MMORPG. It's like never leaving the first area. It's like never leaving that point and exploring the outer world. EVE Online is a vast game, and you have to step out of high sec and you have to go into low sec. Hence why I'm doing a video series right now on how to survive in low sec. And then you go even farther. You can go out into null sec. Yes, you're gonna have ships blown up, but that's part of the fun because you can also blow up a lot of other ships as well. Now, where the combat comes in is like, well, this is kind of boring. It's a little menu driven. Yes, it's not combat like you're gonna see in an action game like Witcher or Skyrim or something like that, or even some examples he pointed out, Star Wars Online with its dogfighting expansion. But EVE Online is not a game that's a dogfighting game. It's a game of ships, from small frigate class ships all the way up to mammoth titans. They are not jet fighters in space. They are ships. They are ships like we see in today, where you have those standard ship classes from, frigate to destroyer, cruiser, battleship. They're not meant to be jet fighters. They're meant to be very strategic, deployed at a certain point, and yes, it is kind of like chess and real-time strategy in a sense, but once the bullets start flying, it gets pretty hectic because your ship is on the line. If that ship goes boom, it goes boom. There is not another one waiting for you in the port or in the docking station. It's gone for good. You have real stakes. You have real skin in the game here. And that is what makes combat much more intensive, because when you're in a PvP fight, and you're not getting ganked. It's actually a fleet fight, a real gang fight between two opposing sides. Whew. There's no other feeling like it. And you frankly don't want more added complexity than what's already there. You want to be able to hit the button because you got to keep an eye on the whole tactical situation. You have to keep an eye on your defenses. You have to keep an eye on your electronic warfare. You have to keep an eye on who the target calling is. You have to keep an eye on you can bug out or not, or you have to engage, or what you're going to lose if you don't engage. All of these factors come into play. That is what makes EVE Online so unique. So, in my point of view, the combat is complex enough. A lot of it deals with the fittings and your skills and the ships you can fly, but the ships are very specialized in what they can do, particularly when you get up into Tech 2. If you're running level 4 missions and you're just smacking rats around, yes, it's target rat, hit the button, target rat, hit the button, target rat, hit the button. You're not looking around to see if you're going to get jumped or ganked, or if that rat's going to call in a whole fleet and hot drop it on top of you, which I think would be pretty cool. You don't have your own fleet that you have to monitor, you have to, take care of. There's a whole layer of combat which is missing, which is not being taken into account. So if you play EVE Online, play it in the sense that you're part of a larger universe. And living in that universe is what makes EVE Online unique. EVE Online is not like a soda pop you down in 5 minutes. EVE Online is like a fine wine that you drink slowly and you let it imbue inside you, and you just become immersed in that world. You can become immersed in the politics or the economics or the strategy of what goes on. Everyone is an empire builder and everyone is an empire destroyer. And part of that destruction or defense of that empire is the combat. But the combat is not the only part of EVE Online. It is an integral core, I would say, of EVE Online. In fact, that is why most of the skills that are available that you can train are combat related. But even inside combat, there are subsections of those skills that you can specialize in. There are some pilots that specialize in gunnery or missiles or drones. There are others that specialize in electronic warfare. And the longer you play the game, you can specialize in just about all of them. Some are very good in interceptors. Some are very good in capital ships. Even in combat, there are specialization. So coming in with a viewpoint that, okay, it's not like a dogfighting sim like you would see in X-Wing or Elite Dangerous or the older Wing Commander games. Yeah, that's not what it is. This is a tactical and strategic game of large capital ships fighting each other. I mean capital ships, I mean just not starfighters. There are carriers where you launch starfighters, and then, that's part of a larger battle. So I would not take EVE Online's combat and make it more complex, because in a large fleet engagement, you kind of want as little complexity as possible at that point. You want to fire and shoot at the target that's called, or heal the ships that need to be healed, or jam the ships that need to be jammed. That's already enough on your plate. Where you don't get that in a mission. If you're in a mission, yes, you hit this target in a certain order, and that's it, which is a minute fraction of the combat that's available in the game. Another point that Nerdslayer pointed out was, in his opinion, that CCP is kind of on the downslope. It's lost some lead developers. It's had to close some studios. The Atlanta studio and Dust 514, he said, was a failure and things like that. I don't quite agree with all of this. Yes, there were certainly missteps that were made by CCP, but a lot of these I attributed CCP just being a company that's growing and learning and being quite daring in its approach to games. I'd much rather have CCP trying new things and even occasionally failing than doing nothing new at all. I would not say Dust 514 was a failure. I think it was actually a pretty good success. It demonstrated the technology. It demonstrated, the shooting concept. I personally loved Dust 514. It was much better than Call of Duty, a lot of other games. It was much more in-depth. It wasn't just a murder fest. that we see with every other shooter that has come out before or since. And Dust 514 brought in the EVE Online concept of what you lose actually matters. You know, if your clone has prototype gear on or a prototype suit on and it's gone, it's gone. And that was a totally new concept that had never been in first-person shooters before. That's amazing. And CCP proved that it could work. Now, the misjudgment that was made on Dust 514 was to release it on PS3, which was near the end of its life to begin with, and not going to either PS4 or PC, and ensuring the long-term survival of Dust 514. But Dust 514 is not necessarily dead. Yes, it's been shut down, but the new Project Elysium, or Nova, it was known as before, is going to take up and run with the Dust 514 concept on PC. So yeah, we're going to get Dust coming back. And I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be great. And I think it can be much more integrated with EVE Online as a real mechanic of how to influence certain things. Like, for example, there was talk before of using Dust 514 or ground troops or clone troops to capture planetary installations, or you can use it to capture stations and things like that. Rather than destroying a station, you can capture it with clone troopers, things like that. That concept is still going to be coming down in the future. And this story is not finished yet. So I would not say that was a failure. Now, the World of Darkness in Atlanta, yeah, that was disappointing. That was a flop. There was that really enlightening article that had come out, I think it was about a year and a half ago. I forgot who had published it, but it really described the internal kind of havoc and chaos that occurred in the Atlanta studio and why it had to be shut down. So that wasn't good. But CCP is a company that, from my point of view, does learn from its mistakes. It doesn't mean it doesn't make mistakes. They do make mistakes, but they learn from those mistakes. And they grow online and they make the changes to EVE Online as they're needed. The big change we've had right now is making all the outposts in 0.0 destructible. This has been a long time in coming. This has been 2 years coming down the road with releases of citadels, engineering complexes, and refineries. That is huge. That is a fundamental change to EVE Online from where it began. And that's a big thing. I think that's very important. And so very much a necessary concept and change that was needed in order to keep 0.0 fresh. I mean, there were these stations that were just all over the place. I mean, Providence, God, I mean, they're like weeds. And no one was using them. They were just gathering dust. Now they can be blown up and new ones put in its place. So now there's a real foothold. There's a real skin in the game here of losing a station and going from there. So yeah. Anyways, that's my feedback. And with all due respect to Nerdslayer, I think he has his opinion, but his experience or exposure with the combat portion of EVE is very limited. And he needs to come back, try it again, and get out into 0.0 and get in some real gang and fleet fights. Get to the real notion of specialized combatants in a large at-stakes type of engagement, and you'll see a whole new perspective of combat that you've never seen before. That's not to knock down Nerdslayer in any way. I do enjoy his work. I subscribe to his channel. And I think a lot of people get stuck in the same rut that he got into. And this just goes back to classical. You've got to get out of the starting corporation, get out of high sec, and get deep into low sec or null sec or wormhole space and get into where the action really is. Because it's not going to be these rats that show up in high sec and you blow out time and time and time again just to accumulate ISK. And that is a whole separate discussion about why one plays EVE Online. If it's just for ISK accumulation, it's kind of dead end. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't do anything. Yeah, you accumulate all the ISK in the world, but what are you going to do with it? There are higher stakes involved, and I think that is the next major step that every player who joins EVE Online needs to take, and that is when it becomes truly special. So guys, those are my thoughts I'm gonna leave it here right now. Let me know what you think in the comments, and see where you stand on this. If you like the video, please subscribe to the channel, and if you'd like to support me, check out the Patreon page, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.